Okay, it's 10:33, so we're going to get started, although that list is still growing. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Career Counseling with an Equitable Lens. We will start by giving all of you a brief introduction of each one of the co-presenters. My name is Karl Cameron. I'm a full-time career counselor at San Diego Continuing Education. For those of you who don't know, SDCE is an adult education institution within the San Diego Community College District. Our institution offers thousands of free classes and over 40 plus career training programs. I'm also an adjunct counselor for Grossmont College, and personally have a background as a longtime community college counselor and career development professional with experience across various institutions in San Diego County with 10 plus years of experience in higher education. We're going to go around the horn to our other presenters. Next up is Mona Patel, who will share her background.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Mona Patel. I work at San Diego Miramar College. I oversee the Career Center there as the Career Center Coordinator. I am also a career counselor, and I have about 10 plus years of working as a career counselor. Prior to my role at Miramar, I worked with Claudia Estrada-Howell at Mesa College as an adjunct counselor. And then at Miramar, I had the opportunity to work with Karl when he was an adjunct counselor with us. And now I will pass it along to Claudia Estrada-Howell.
Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Claudia Estrada-Howell. I oversee the Career Center, Transfer Center, and Evaluations Department as a supervisor at San Diego Mesa College. Before that, I was a career counselor for almost 8 years at a 4-year institution. And I loved my time doing that. And I'd like to share some insights of my two worlds, my current role and that here today with you. So I look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mona and Claudia, and I promise you'll be hearing more from them. Because of our involvement in career counseling with the region, we were approached to cover the topic, and after some deliberation, we agreed to contribute because it's just that nice, right? Because we have different roles and we work for different institutions and we have varied experiences, we thought it would be a good idea to divide the presentation equitably in 3 parts. So think about this presentation as 3 acts, as seen from 3 different lenses, with each co-presenter sharing their own insight on the topic, okay? And I get to start. I have the pleasure of starting, so I'll be the first act. So this will be my 15 minutes. In the research process for this presentation, I found a description of inclusive teaching from the University of Michigan Center of Research on Learning and Teaching. And I modified it slightly to include the term counseling. So I'll just, personally, I found the definition useful as a guiding principle as a counselor. So I'm just going to read the first part to you, and you can feel free to read the rest. Inclusive counseling involves deliberately cultivating a learning and counseling environment where all students are treated equitably, have equal access to learning, and feel valued and supported in their learning. To provide context in my lens as a career counselor, I wanted to provide insight on the role definition of school counselor. And I found a really good one provided by the California Association of School Counselors, and I found it to be insightful. And let me just read a big portion of it, at least what I highlighted. Excellent school counselors provide high quality services to all students in areas of academic, career, and social emotional learning. All students deserve and have the right to the fundamental resources and services provided by school counselors. As you can see from both definitions that I've shared so far, equity is a common theme, therefore bringing relevance to the delivery of counseling services with an equitable lens. And that's why we're here today. So I know I've shared my background earlier, but I wanted to share a visual of a little bit of my academic background. And while you scan through that, I want to share a little bit more about the campuses that I serve now. The campuses I serve are very diverse, to say the least. Diversity can have many dimensions, such as race, ethnicity, geography, national origin, religion and spirituality, gender and sexuality, age and accessibility, class and socioeconomics, personal relationships, group memberships, among other dimensions, of course. And in my experience as a counselor, as it pertains to delivering career counseling services with an equitable lens, I found the following points to be important to me. Create a culture that values everyone's voice, consider a diversified approach, explore your own implicit biases, last but not least, buy into the growth mindset instead of fixed mindset? These are some questions to consider. We're going to touch on the first point. Create a culture that values everyone's voice. These are the questions that I thought was relevant for this point. Are you equitable in how you divide time and energy amongst students? So for example, in a workshop or presentation setting, so as a counselor, we do quite a bit of that. And even as a teaching counselor, which I do as well, I teach counseling and personal growth classes. Sometimes the loudest and fastest have the tendency to get the most attention. And so it's important to address that and have some solutions to that. And some of mine are, sometimes I provide the order of participation in advance. So we're using Zoom today. So for example, what you could do is use the Zoom participation list to prompt who it is that you're going to call for the next question or the next prompt. If you don't want to do that, you can also promote participation from those who have not yet participated in the workshop by posing the question, I'd like to hear first from someone who hasn't participated yet. Another question to consider in regards to this are the barriers that can limit a student's, are there barriers that can limit a student's access to you? So for example, during the pandemic, personally, I've been more proactive in promoting my accessibility. I do many more class visits. I offer and deliver many more in-service workshops. I share different ways a student can connect with me directly, such as email, Google phone, and even social media. The bottom line is I try to be top of mind and I try to make it easier for the students to reach me, because the way it was done before is, maybe a student would walk into campus and they'd see that there's counseling services and they'd book an appointment there. That's an organic way because it's top of mind. They see it in front of them, right? But now, it's the onus is on us to connect with the student just to make it easier for them because of the challenges that exist now. Another question to consider is, what considerations are you factoring in ensuring that everyone has an opportunity to be heard? And this is more just, counseling 101, making sure that during a one-on-one counseling session, you have an awareness of your own tone, speed, and volume. Personally, my standard volume and tone is pretty rich, it's pretty loud. And so if I'm with a student that may prefer kind of a volume that's a little bit less, I try to make a concerted effort to be cognizant of that and meet them where they're at. Because if if my volume's too high, that might intimidate them a little bit. And again, it doesn't meet them where they're at, and I'm not going to be able to hear their voice. The next point is consider a diversified approach. And I understand that there's an ongoing debate about learning styles and whether they even exist or not. I'm not here to argue that. And most of you are aware of this concept, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. But personally, I feel that making sure that you touch on all bases, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic delivery is important to make sure that, again, you have an equitable delivery and the material that you're sharing with the student. So for example, as a career counselor, I promote visually sharing resources such as sharing labor market information from the resources that you probably heard about before, like ONET, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, or maybe you have some personal images or mental models that you like that you found online or you've developed yourself. It's much easier than ever before to show that when you're delivering online counseling nowadays. And obviously, if you deliver it in person, you could show them that. From an auditory standpoint, playing a video from Career One Stop or even the Bureau of Labor Statistics might meet that, just so that you're showing them something, but they can hear and have context through sound. They might be able to get the concepts that you're trying to deliver to them. And from the kinesthetic standpoint, encouraging informational interviews, encouraging internships, job shadow, career assessments, hands-on activities, encouraging note-taking. Those are all kinesthetic, right? So you don't necessarily have to touch on every single point, but again, just having a varied approach, in my opinion, is important. So questions to consider are, is your approach multifaceted? Because really that's what it means to have a diversified approach. And do you think that it can be more equitable if your approach is diversified even more than it is now? Next point is exploring your implicit biases, okay? There's a resource, some of you have probably seen before, called Project Implicit. It's a nonprofit organization and an international collaboration between researchers who are interested in implicit social recognition. And I'll give you the URL. I actually go there now. This is the URL, implicit.harvard.edu/implicit/select test HTML. And I'll make sure that this resource is shared with you. As you can see, there are many different instruments in here to get a sense of your own biases. Because if you haven't done that already, I know there are a lot of resources out there. You're a little bit behind as a counselor when delivering services, because as a human being, you're going to have implicit biases, right? This is one way to do it. Back when I was a part of a certificate program for San Diego State sometime back in 2018, I wrote on the topic of cultural diversity and advocacy for one of the assignments. And basically, I'm quoting myself. In order to get a better understanding of who we are, it is important to take inventory of the various factors that are central in defining our sense of self. Developing cultural competence is not just about learning other cultures. Learning first about one's own history is critical in the process of gaining cultural competence. Through this self-reflection, we can develop a basis to compare and contrast between different cultures. Through this process, we can have a chance to appreciate cultural diversity. Only then can we truly have a chance to be effective advocates to greater cause of promoting cross-cultural harmony. Going back on the slide, okay, and this is a definition, actually a resource that I found from the NCDA, National Career Development Association. Really important questions to pose and think and ponder about. Are my counseling practices steering students into or out of courses based on their race, color, national origin, sex, or disability? Am I intentional about making sure that all career-based opportunities are promoted to all students despite any disability? This is, I'm sure most of you are familiar with already, the Johari window. The Johari window is a technique that helps people better understand their relationship with themselves and others, and it was developed by two American psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harry Ingram in 1955, hence the name Johari. But the general premise is that our identity can be divided into 4 quadrants in this mental model: open self, blind spot, hidden self, and unknown self. And I think we can all agree that if we can shine light in our own blind spots, as well as our unknown self, we can take steps in addressing our own implicit biases. Okay. The next point that I want to make is growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and the buy-in into the growth mindset. Okay. The brainchild behind this growth mindset versus fixed mindset dialogue is Karl Susan Dweck, who's an American psychologist and professor of psychology at Stanford University. Basically, she's renowned in her work on mindset psychological traits. And she wrote a book in 2006 called The New Psychology of Success. And according to Dweck, individuals can be placed on a continuum according to their implicit views of where ability comes from. Some believe their success is based on innate ability, and these are said to have fixed theory of intelligence, fixed mindset, and others who believe their success is based on hard work, learning, training, doggedness, are said to have growth or an incremental theory of intelligence. Personally, as a career counselor, buying into the growth mindset model allows me to be more equitable regarding the career development options that I may share to students. In other words, my buy-in in the growth mindset contributes to the delivery of career counseling and with a more equitable lens. So I'm going to share a quick video that I found on YouTube that I believe does a great job on summarizing the concept of growth mindset versus fixed mindset because of its simplicity. And my 4-year-old loves it too. Okay, so let me see. I want to make sure the video, actually, you know what? I already have it here. Okay, I'll just play it, but I want to make sure that the sound works. So hold on. Share sound.
Chapter 1. Mojo discovers a secret about his brain. A secret that will change the way he looks at the world forever. Our story begins with Mojo, a friendly monster who loved school. especially math. Until one day, when something terrible happened. The math problems got harder. Nothing made sense anymore. Mojo had a devastating thought. He just wasn't smart enough for school. It seemed the only reasonable thing to do was pack his things and leave forever. Just then, he heard his friend Katie laughing. "Mojo, you can't just give up," she said. "I have no choice, Katie," said Mojo. "You're either born smart or you're not. And I realize today that I'm not." "Mojo, that's not how it works," said Katie. "Anyone can be smart. You just have to work at it." "Pfft, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," said Mojo. "It's not ridiculous, it's science," said Katie. "Neuroscientists studied the brain for years and discovered an incredible secret, that your brain is like a muscle. When you try challenging things, like those hard math problems, you're giving your brain the exercise it needs to get stronger, which makes you smarter." "Ooh, is that really true?" said Mojo. "Of course," said Katie. "It's like how when you were a baby, you didn't know how to talk. But you kept trying, exercising your brain, until one day you could." Mojo! Mojo couldn't believe what he was hearing. If your brain was really like a muscle, did that mean anyone could become smarter? Even him? He turned to ask Katie, but just then, she had to be off to her next class. But maybe you can answer Mojo's question. What do you think? Can Mojo become smarter? What about you? Now that's an interesting question indeed.
And so in recap, when it comes to considering pedagogy and general interactions with students to promote equity, it is important, in my opinion, to create a culture that values everyone's voice, to consider a multifaceted, diversified approach, to explore your own implicit biases, and to buy into the growth mindset instead of the fixed mindset. And remember, this is from my lens as a counselor. I'm not imposing your truth on your own truth and personal experiences as an educator or administrator. So I hope this helped. And now I'm going to pass it on to Mona Patel.
Perfect, Karl. That was exactly 15 minutes. Well done. So I will be sharing my screen now. And can everybody see that? Okay. So I had an opportunity to introduce myself earlier, and I shared what my role is currently at Miramar College, but I did want to give you a little bit of background on how I came across to the career development field and became a career counselor and now a career center coordinator. So I was in my 20s and mid 20s when I was changing my career. I'd worked in the fashion and beauty industry and I wasn't happy and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And I realized I had never visited a career center before. So when I was an undergrad, I never actually went to our career center. But as an alumni in my mid 20s, I paid for the services and I came across a career counselor who I felt was tremendously helpful and later became a mentor to me, which led me to getting my master's in career counseling. But for me, not being first generation, my parents are from India. In our culture, it's just expected. You go to college, people start talking about college since basically when you're born. But I felt like even though I came from a privileged background and I had never stepped in to visit the career center, I had never, taken the risk of actually putting myself out there and talking to someone about how lost I felt and didn't know what I wanted to study. Imagine how much more challenging it might be for somebody whose parents didn't go to college, for somebody where English is not their native language, they're new to this country. And so even though I may have not faced some of these barriers growing up, I am definitely aware of the extra challenges that come across with the different populations that we serve. And so this is something that I find, especially our topic, what we're discussing today, relevant to the times that we're living in. And it's extremely important to be intentional about how we are going about with our services. And so career centers usually cover 3 areas. There's the career counseling portion, where there's the one-on-one career counselor meeting with the student. There is the section for employer relations, where we invite employers to come on our campus to attend job fairs or panels. And then we have other events on campus, whether there are smaller events. At Miramar, we do these coffee chats where we invite, for example, one different employer every month to talk about the types of opportunities that they have at their company. And so how career centers function and the work that we've been doing, it's really important to think about what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, and that we can't just wait for students to naturally come to us. We have to put ourselves out there. And it's really important to think about, the students who don't have access to all of these resources or don't even know what to ask. How can we go to them? And how can we make it welcoming? How can we make it almost like this normal feeling that, what you want to be when you grow up is not something that most people easily have an answer to. And we definitely change our minds throughout the process of our journey throughout career development. What we may have thought about when we wanted to be, in our teens may change in our 20s. And, I feel like I just turned 40, but I'm starting to think about what's next. And so this is a continual process. It's not something that is, that 18-year-old has to figure out what that major is. And, we put so much pressure, not us as counselors, but I think as society, on having to have everything figured out. But most of us don't have it figured out. And even if we're in careers, we're not 100% sure if this is something that we're going to keep doing, and that's okay. And so as we serve different individuals, it's really important that we make them feel like this is okay. And, even though everyone else seems to have it together, even though it may look like that on the outside, usually that's not the case. So, regardless of a student's background or identity, it's really important that we take time to think about all of the different ideas and skills and values in the world that they could potentially have exposure to, and make that something that, they can comfortably approach in their journey. So it's really important for counselors to think about partnerships and collaborations. And, at Career Centers, we've been partnering with diverse programs, but it's definitely not easy to reach out to all of the different targeted, disproportionately impacted groups in one, semester or even in 1 year. So we do have to constantly assess, what groups have we worked with? What groups have we not worked with? What does the data show on our campus, for example, or in our district? What type of students are not coming to the Career Center? What type of students are not doing informational interviews or making appointments with our counselors? And so when you take a look at the data and you think about what groups are we not really serving enough, or what could we do differently? Think about your own programs on campus that you could potentially partner with. So, is it tutoring? Is it the outreach program? Is it EOPS? Is it DSPS? And then each of us at the community colleges have our research offices, so we can ask for the data to see, at our specific department or in this semester, how many students, for example, those of us have the system called S.A.R.T, like how many, looking at all the different targeted populations, how many students did we serve? And so that's something that we feel like we could do better at Miramar, and we've started thinking about it more. And then also looking at, the types of events that we have been doing recently. We had the opportunity to collaborate with our sister colleges. So, there's a lot that has happened in 2020, and we felt that it was really important to have a specific event that focused on the navigating the workplace as an African American. And that we felt is not something we could do as a standalone Miramar event. We don't have the largest African American population among, when we look at all of our sister colleges or even all the community colleges in our region. And so we felt that we wanted to partner with our sister colleges. There are definitely more students at City and Mesa College, but also for a greater reach, because we feel that sometimes when we don't partner, we have some wonderful speakers that come to these events where, students could really benefit from the information, but we wish more students would be aware of it. And so we felt that, when we reached out with our continuing ed, and Karl was a part of it, and I think Michelle Tillman is on this conversation as well, because she was representing Miramar and really helped lead this workshop of navigating the workplace during a racial reckoning of a Black person. And Abdul from City College was a moderator. And I was just really impressed with the ability to collaborate and bring such an important topic. And so that's something that we felt we'd like to do more of, because without these, individuals who are able to bring the different speakers and help promote and market and really reach all of our wonderful students that could hear from these, conversations, I think, that's something that was really beneficial. Another event that we did this semester at Miramar that I felt was wonderful, and we also reached out to our sister colleges to help us market, was the LinkedIn workshop, where we had a first generation veteran who is an employee, and he works in sales at LinkedIn. However, in his free time, he likes to just kind of give back and talk to college students about LinkedIn and the benefits of LinkedIn. So when we look at, diversity, equity, inclusion, and just different socioeconomic factors, LinkedIn is not traditionally something that's introduced to communities where you have, more poverty or just lower socioeconomic. You don't really hear about that at the high school level, and or even maybe at the colleges when a student is starting out. Usually, if you have a parent who might be working in a corporate setting, or you have neighbors or individuals who have just, talked about LinkedIn, you might have heard about it, but usually it's not something that comes up unless, you are brought up in a family where your parents have talked about it, or you have intentionally, approached a career counselor who brings it up. And so I think that having an individual who comes from a background, a person of color, first generation, who talked about his own personal story and how LinkedIn is something when it comes to social networking, it's not that everyone who is on it is a professional right away. A student, obviously can start building their profile, but again, it shouldn't be something that's intimidating. It should be something that we make it easy and accessible for students. And then we did another workshop this semester, career exploration workshop hosted by Deloitte, and Michelle Tillman, again, representing our office. She also works at the UCSD Rady School of Management. And so we had a partnership with UCSD and also Miramar, where traditionally the big four is Deloitte, KPMG, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and Ernst & Young have approached four-year college students for internship opportunities when they're juniors. Now imagine our students who might, or when they're sophomores, I'm sorry. So imagine when our students who are at the community college setting that might be transferring, and they might not find out about it until after they transfer, but it might be too late because they are juniors. And then to apply for this internship, you might need to be a sophomore. And so we are starting to look at ways of these companies who have done recruiting and more of like engagement with different colleges, and if they're sophomores or juniors, how is it that we can make it easier for our students at the community college setting to get the same fair access and information as those who might already be at the 4 years? Because we don't want them to miss out on the getting exposure to the accounting world in some of these larger firms. And so employer relations is huge on our part in educating and being intentional about which employers we're working with. What is their mission? What are their values? We have also had an opportunity to invite some of our alumni who were actual students at, in our SDCCD, so that whether they took classes at Miramar, Mesa, or City, or continue, but we try to bring them back because we want their voices and their journeys to be something that's relatable for our students. And then another event that we did, or that we've been doing monthly, is just juggling work, kids, school during COVID, because it's been a tough year, as I talked about earlier this presentation. And A lot of us are wearing a lot of different hats. And imagine just for our students who have little ones who are just trying to do, I mean, as professionals for us, it's hard. And then when you are facing certain barriers, whether it's food insecurity or anything else, on top of just trying to keep it all together, you feel like you need somebody to talk to. And so we started these meetups where individuals could just come in. We don't have any like heavy agenda. It's a place where we could just talk about struggles and vent or whatever it is, or just laugh. And so again, a reminder about, when you do have panels or workshops or job fairs, think about, who are the people that are representing, and then how can we make it easy for our students to relate to their journeys and their stories? Because when you hear something as a student that you could see yourself sort of in, something that's relatable, it makes it that much more believable to follow in their that career, potentially a similar career, their footsteps, or even do something else. Like maybe that person shares that they were first generation and they had these barriers, but they were able to, go on and, how did they face those challenges? And I think students need to hear more of those stories. So just going to share the flyer of some of the events that I had mentioned earlier. It does help to have biographies or photos of the guest speakers or the individuals who will be participating in some of those events that you might hold at your campus. And I understand some of the individuals in this at this session might also be at high school counselors. So if you at your high school have an opportunity to invite guest speakers ahead of time, rather than just having names or a flyer with the event or the title, visuals are powerful. So it's important to make sure that they're friendly and inclusive and relatable. And the next flyer, I talked about the LinkedIn workshop that we did. So that's the individual, Ryan, who is the first generation veteran that works for LinkedIn. And then he had his biography also on a separate flyer. So those are just some of the examples that I have to talk about today, but feel free, I'll share my information later with my email address if you need any ideas. And now I'll pass it along to the wonderful Claudia Estrada-Howell. She is an innovative leader in higher education and somebody that I've admired for a long time. So I will stop sharing, or do you want me to continue with mine? Stop sharing, right?
Yeah, you could stop sharing. Okay. I'll go ahead and hop on. Thank you so much, Mona, for that warm welcome.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I am so grateful for all of you being here today to join us. I introduced myself briefly at the beginning, but I will go into a little bit more about sort of my purpose and drive for this presentation. I have been in higher education for a pretty long time. I was a career counselor for almost 8 years at a 4-year institution. I currently serve as a supervisor for the Transfer Center, Career Center and Evaluations Department at San Diego Mesa College. For those of you who don't know, San Diego Mesa College is part of the San Diego Community College District. We have a little over 20,000 students, at one point almost 26,000 students enrolled in our institution. We also do offer a bachelor's degree program, and we are an HSI as well. And so I'm very proud to work at Mesa College and to work with my colleagues here today, with Karl and Mona. We've known each other for many years and worked in many ways together. I really, listened closely to Karl and Mona's messages, and they really struck many chords for me. I think they were right on. Our presentation is really focusing on career counseling with equitable lenses, right? And when we think about what that means, and being a career counselor possibly, or maybe acting as a career counselor without the title, because that happens in so many instances, especially at the high schools, right? Where you are all that students have to go to for career advice. it can seem overwhelming. It could seem overwhelming, especially in career services, because just nationally, that in itself has a lot of equity gaps, right? A lot of career centers are very teeny tiny. There's limited support, limited resources. So I sort of want to just talk to you today about what can we do? What can we do as individuals and as a team when you go back to your spaces, whether virtually or in person, how you can bring all of those folks that you do have access to come together and provide some support for students in equitable ways. So Mona touched on this, but I want to expand because it really, really, truly is at the heart of what makes movement in supporting our students. And that is taking a moment to get to know who your students are. And so, you know, that can mean many things like, you know, getting to know their name, their pronouns, their, you know, many things, but really, truly, we know as counselors, again, whether you're at the high school level or at the 4-year level or community college, or you're a coordinator, right? You're a coordinator of a program as an audience right now. It can be overwhelming because you may not have that much time to really get into those unique rapport with a lot of those students. So it is really, 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 truly important, and I'm going to drive this message really close to all of you, hopefully. It is truly important that as practitioners, as counselors, that you do take some time to become involved in some of that data collection. So whether it is, as Mona mentioned, partnering with your institutional research offices, or folks that can provide that, being that person that is able to look at the questions that we're asking students to make sure we're asking the right questions as career practitioners. Because, you know, institutions do have a lot of outcome surveys. They look at different metrics. A lot of times those metrics are, you know, derived or delivered by other needs that the institution may have, whether it's financial needs or, you know, so on and so forth. But in equitable practices, in your day-to-day practice, it is super, super important that the data really drives how you form that programming, that one-on-one counseling. And so some examples at Mesa College that we have used coming out of the Career Center that we have used to look at our students is we've created a destination survey. And it not only looks at the outcomes of our students, but we really do ask with that destination survey what their experience was with our services, with our counseling, with workshops, with work-based learning opportunities, so that we could better learn how to support and serve our students. We are very intentional about pre and post assessments. We do so for counseling appointments. For peer-to-peer, we have a career peer ambassador program, and they do pre and post assessments or surveys of our students to make sure that we are meeting the needs of our students as they leave our service. We have done student focus groups at Mesa. Our institutional research office did a pretty vast focus group to learn more about the needs of our students. And, you know, we came to find that a lot of our students don't even know what it means to select a major or what undeclarement. So there's a lot to learn there. Student climate surveys, those are super important because when we're talking about inclusivity, equity, you know, do your spaces give a welcoming vibe to your students, whether it's a teeny tiny space or you have a really large, you know, multi-office department. Does that space feel welcoming to your students? And then the most important question here, the most important question that you should really be asking is, who isn't participating? Who is not coming out in these surveys? Who are you not able to get to show up in your spaces? So that is really, when we talk about equity work, that is the starting point. That is the starting point. If you close the gap for disproportionately impacted students, you're going to close the gap for all students. So really focusing in on who isn't showing up. So if your campus right now, for example, has a small population of disproportionately impacted students, let's say your Black student population is 2% of your campus. From that 2% of Black students at your campus, how many of those students are coming to your services, right? Super important that you are capturing that information and that it's driving the delivery of your services and your outreach too, because we have to be really, really practical these days on how we are getting students to connect with us. Okay, so at San Diego Mesa College, our counseling department, our Career Center works very closely with our counseling department, and we actually have 2 career counselor coordinators at our Career Center that are also part of our general counseling department. General counseling looked at their data for the services that they were offering and looked at students that they were missing, that they were not seeing so much. And our Black student population, or our Latinx student population, these students they found to be utilizing walk-in services more so than full appointments. And so they noticed that the numbers were off in terms of students from those populations using full appointments. So I wanted to show you a video here with Leroy Johnson. He is our chair of counseling at San Diego Mesa College. He's wonderful. He recorded this for the region with the help of West Ed, and I wanted to show you this video. It's about 8 minutes, but it really speaks to something happening at Mesa College as that counseling is doing to help students with ed planning, career planning. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start here. I hope you all can hear this.
Hello, my name's Leroy Johnson. I'm the chair of counseling at San Diego Mesa College. And I appreciate having this opportunity to talk to you about some of our initiatives at Mesa College that have to do with particularly serving our Black student population, but in the area of having career planning take place before educational planning. And we're really proud about the things that we're doing. So I'd like to be able to share this with you. One of the things that got us started, we created a group at Mesa called the Black Faculty Counseling Collaborative, and we use the BFCC to designate that. But it's a total of 11 Black counselors at Mesa College. And one of the things we wanted to address first was that we wanted all of the Black students at Mesa College as a disproportionately impacted group to have their full comprehensive education plans completed by the time they start their second semester at Mesa College, just hoping to move all of the success metrics in a kind of a jump rather than a lag. We wanted to have those students know what classes to take, have met with counselors, have people they could come back to and still work with in the future to get follow-up through. And so that was our goal with the BFCC. Our student platform that we work with is Campus Solutions. And so we're able to go into that student database and have, for instance, our counseling supervisor, all of the data in those other slides, he was able to gather. And so going into submitting a query, if you will, in Campus Solutions allows us to get information on students that way. We've also started things with a survey to Black students at Mesa College to say, hey, what do you think we could do better as counselors to serve you? What do you think some of the gaps are? And we actually had a counselor meeting probably a little more than a month ago where we had a student panel, and we had 2 Black students and 1 Latinx student, and they talked about their experiences with general counseling. And so we used that as part of this to get us motivated and get us started. And one of the things they identified with for us, one of the things they said was that they, as a group, didn't always feel comfortable coming to general counseling. They didn't always feel like they were being treated the way they would like to be treated. And, you know, we think that we're doing a good job and we think that we're providing a good service. But when we have students come to a panel and tell us different, we take their experiences as what we need to work on. So we've started a counseling equity committee to kind of address those things. And another data source for us is S.A.R.S scheduling, where students are listed whether they come in for drop-in and meet with a counselor for 15 to 20 minutes or a full hour-long appointment, and we gather that data, and that's also contributed to the 2 data slides that you see. Some of the marketing pieces for us, probably the most recent one, we had a Black Studies and Chicano Studies open house that took place on Friday, where we talked about our Black Faculty Counselors Collaborative. We've had a flex activity about 2 weeks ago. We presented at our Mesa Student Services Council retreat. So we're using various avenues to get the information out about the BFCC and to make sure the students know about it. And we're still in a struggle to get all the information to students. We haven't yet gotten the education plans for all of our Black students at the start of their second semester. So right now we have 3 more dates identified where we call them ed planning workshops, where we've contacted Black students, invited them in, and we're bringing them in to get those education plans done. That's one thing. The other thing is the counseling department itself. We have a counseling equity committee, and we're putting on a counseling open house focused on equity. That'll be October 13th and 14th from 12 to 2. And we're inviting all of the instructional faculty to come to that, to be able to see the things that we're doing and how we're trying to reach out to our Black student population. And our goal is to have the instructional faculty go back to their classrooms and pass the information on to students in their syllabi, in actual classes, or through class visits that the BFCC counselors make to their classes. One of the other things that we're doing that's related to career planning before educational planning is we've got training set up for instructional faculty to have career training provided by a career counselor. And we even have a training set up for our classified professionals to learn some career information, simply because they meet with students all the time, and it would be really good for them to know what some of the possibilities they could refer to students and help students to move along. So we have 3 of those trainings that are going to happen, and 2 in October and 1 in November. One piece, of course, is the education plans, seeing those, but the transfer rates of Black students, the success rates just of from their first semester to their second semester, how many units they pass. So we probably have, I don't know, 6 or 8 different metrics that we'll be looking at to say, is this making a difference? Are those students who were involved with the BFCC in a better position than the ones who were not involved? Because we're not going to get to everybody, but we'll be able to compare one group against the other. So I think all of those success metrics are what we'll be looking at. So that was our Black Faculty Counseling Collaborative, and it means in Swahili, I see you. So it's a greeting. It's I understand you, I see you, you count, you matter.
All right. I do have a couple more minutes here, and I just wanted to finish off. Stop that and hit next. Okay, I wanted to stop with sort of speaking to all of you again as either career counselors, coordinators, or just career leaders, folks that are leading this work at your campuses, whether it's high school or college, that there are things you can do, and you don't have to do them alone. You don't have to do them alone. Karl mentioned creating a culture, right? Creating that culture of inclusivity, of making sure that every single student is part of this work, and that they are heard and that they're seen. So at San Diego Mesa College, one thing that we are doing for the Career Center, the Transfer Center, and evaluations, because that is the area that I am in, we created an anti-racism, diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan, utilizing SMART goals to make sure it's actionable. SMART goals meaning specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Our plan has 7 sections. We are going to hold ourselves accountable for how we recruit and retain our own team members, our career peers that we hire. We are going to hold ourselves accountable for training all of our team members on implicit bias and bias training and diversity training and so on. We are going to very much look closely at our policies and practices to make sure we are using that equitable lens. We want to make sure we are providing students with community and a sense of belonging in our spaces, in person, through our messaging, through our websites. We are going to hold ourselves accountable for how we engage and support students. We're going to look at our programming and services to see if they're relevant culturally and otherwise for our students that we meet with, and those that we need to meet with, how we outreach to them. Communication and transparency. We want to make sure that all of our partners, employers, university reps, other counselors, faculty, other classified professionals get clear messaging about our intentions, our services, and our support for these students. And then we also want to be very clear about how we are going to be engaging with our employers and university representatives to make sure that we are only engaging with those that are following equitable practices. And I will show you just a quick glimpse of our plan here. Oh, hold on, I accidentally hit stop share. Hold on a second. Let's see. Here we go. Okay, just wanted to show you just a quick glimpse, and this will be posted on our website this month, again, to hold our entire team accountable, but this is definitely something you can do. We've done this as a team in our office. Every single person was involved, including our students, our peers, and so this is something that you all can do and take back. And I know I'm scrolling super fast and you can't read it, but like I said, it will be posted. Okay. That sort of ends my portion. We have a couple of minutes. I don't know if there are any questions, but thank you. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us today.
Thank you so much, Karl and Mona and Claudia. That was fantastic. For our participants, I know we just have a few minutes left, but if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the Q&A in the Whova app. So far, it's just my lonely question that's there. But if anybody else has a question, I'd rather, have it come from all of you. Or if you have any comments that you wanted to share, you can do that in the Whova app too. I see a couple chats. People are saying excellent information. Thank you, Kelly. And Rodnisha says this was amazing. Go Karl. Thank you, everyone. Lots of shout outs, I'm sure, from friends and colleagues across the region, perhaps even the state. And good job, presenters. You had, I think when I counted at the highest, 93 folks attended this session. So excellent. I hope everybody found it as valuable as I did. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so I'm just going to go ahead and ask mine. And this was in reference to some of the specific workshops that you all have put on in your community colleges. I'm wondering if there are workshops that you think are appropriate to invite some of the high school students to, or maybe you already do so.
I can touch on that. I have not reached out to any high schools in the recent times, but that is something in terms of our access to the number of employers and the alumni and guest speakers that we have. I wouldn't be opposed to that, of sharing of the resources and opportunities. I know we work closely with our outreach departments, and we definitely, when we have like open houses in the community, we invite individuals to participate. Yeah, so I would definitely be open to it. Karl and Claudia, maybe you have other ideas?
Sure. I have, for me personally, I have one workshop that I do that I basically open up to the general population. And it's called Your Best Career Fit. And basically encompasses an overview of our institution. It covers exploring the career development process. It covers the difference between job versus career. And last but not least, how can career assessments help? And as it pertains to an equitable lens, I think gaining access to early learning about the career development process is a stance to promote equity, right? So the earlier someone can get this information, the better. So in particular, that's the workshop that I would say is specifically designed for everyone from high schoolers to beyond.
And for us, we actually partner with our outreach department. And so we have career peers going out to the high schools, or well, not physically right now, but they have partnered in the past in high schools and middle schools alike. And we welcome any partnership or any collaboration to do so more.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I don't see any questions coming into the Whova app, and more just shout outs from colleagues and friends across the region. Amazing team from Patel, thanks. And Christina Carson says, well done, Claudia, Mona, and Karl. All right, well, I guess that might just be our time unless anybody has a pressing question they want to go ahead and ask. Otherwise, I'll just stop the recording and folks will have a little bit of a break before the next session. And so, oh yes, I forgot to mention, please don't forget to rate this presentation. So in the Whova app, just below the video screen and below where it says the breakout title, you'll see a button that says rate the session. And then if you liked the session and the presenters and all the content you just heard, please go ahead and like the session. It's kind of like social media-y, isn't it? But we would love to have your feedback. So thank you everyone for attending, and thanks again to our wonderful, wonderful presenters.
Thank you so much for Leslie for moderating this whole affair. Thank you to Mona and Claudia for making this happen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.